Travelers along Route 9 in Berlin, Connecticut have likely seen the top of this old crane peeking out of the water. If you're anything like me, you've probably wondered what the story behind it is, and even more curious to see what remains underwater. I recently went out there myself to try and see what remains. The pond is very murky, making underwater photography hard. I dove this in the winter. In the winter, there's less sunlight, which means less algae, which should give an increase in visibility. The algae is what causes this green hue on the water. Here you can see my dive flag, which I had tied to the beam of the crane. As I descend, I really can't see anything. It's pretty disorienting. In the video, you can see more than I could even see in person. When I was down there, I really could only see about an inch in front of my face. But I had to see what was down there. I was too curious. And it turns out that actually, much of the components of the crane still remain down there. The cab itself has rotted away, but as you can see here, a lot of the mechanisms are still in place. When I was diving it, I was under the impression that this was an old steam shovel, but after doing more research, it turns out that this was actually a Type O electric shovel, which was built in 1912. As I'm swimming around what would have been inside of the cabin, looking at the remains of all of these components, I silted up very quick. But luckily I managed to get some still photos which captured these components. So the question still remains though, how did this old shovel get sunken here in the first place? Starting in the mid-1800s, the town of Berlin, Connecticut was a prominent brick manufacturing place, due to it having an abundance of clay. The pond which the shovel is located in is actually man-made. It originally was a clay pit, and this shovel is responsible for digging out the entire thing. The crane belonged to the John Carbo Brick Company, which started operation in 1900. The clay in Berlin was said to be perfect for brick making. There were about 11 brick yards in Berlin. Each year, there was a total of 102,500,000 bricks that were created by digging the clay from these pits. Around 90,000 bricks were produced each day. The workers that dug the clay earned about $1 to $2 for every 10 hours worked. So how did the crane actually sink? Well, local legend says that when the crane was digging one day, it hit a natural spring and the pit filled up so fast that the workers were unable to get the crane out in time. However, this is very unlikely. In reality, what actually happened is that the John Carbo Brick Company went bankrupt in 1929, and the shovel was left there. Clay pits do not drain well, and in fact, clay is quite good at holding water. So for the last almost 100 years, every time that it rained or after the snow melted, the clay pit would fill with water, which then, over the years, submerged the crane. Even though the water was murky and you couldn't see much, I just had to go down there and see this. It's stuff like this that fascinates me. To think that this has just been sitting under the water, probably not seen by anyone for nearly 100 years, and yet here I am, in person, right next to it. Of course, I wish I could have seen more, but I do have plans to return maybe next winter. Hopefully I can get better visibility. I did dive this after there had been some rain, so that could have contributed to the visibility being a little bit poor, but I'm not sure if it can get much better, to be honest. Lakes and ponds like this, usually you can't really see much anyway. Having been down there, I stirred up a lot of silt, so I returned to the surface and then waited a little bit and descended back down. But the visibility is obviously still poor, and the best would have been when I first dove down there. But when I first went down there, I kind of stirred up a lot of silt, just because I couldn't really see anything and it was disorienting. But at this point, I kind of knew where everything was on the crane, so I was able to navigate. Although, as you can see, the silt makes it so you really can't see anything. Here I hit the bottom of the pond. It's only around like 10, not even 15 feet deep. And as you can see, hitting the bottom really stirred up some silt. This wood is the floor of the cabin. Over here looks like some type of a fin, which is located at the back of the crane. I try my best to get underneath the cabin with the flashlight to see if I can see anything, but really you can't see anything. It's kind of debatable whether or not the flashlight was really even helping, but being there in person, like I said, I really couldn't see anything, so I was just hoping that the video would come out okay. Here we are descending on the part of the beam which connected to the actual shovel. When I get down there, you can see what appears to be like a square piece of metal. This was the actual shovel for the crane. Here it is. As you can see, going down there, again, instantly silted it out. Here's the bottom. This was only at like 8 feet of water, and I immediately couldn't see anything. What an awesome adventure. I love exploring the world and discovering its hidden, interesting locations such as this.